Howdy folks. I hope all of you are doing well today. Today I'm here to talk about something that kind of gets me over passionate. And it should get everyone over passionate. The truth is there are some that are apathetic and there are others that are totally overly passionate on the wrong side of the issue. But let me start out by talking about these other things. You see behind me that there is a forested area, and the majority of this forested area has young pines in it. That's because it's been logged. And in the area that I live in, that's no big deal. It's quite normal. But when you head out to places like Oregon and Washington and maybe out in the Midwest, I'm not sure, you have people that go overboard in trying to protect the forest. The trees will grow back. The animals will return and repopulate a forest. Trees don't have souls. You know, they don't have spirits, they don't feel pain. In fact, we were given trees by our wonderfully loving Creator, who's indescribable by any words that we have, to be used, to build houses, to burn, to cook our food with, and to stay warm with, and, you know, many other applications that I can't even begin to explain. You know, there are certain plants that have healing properties, and no, I'm not talking about marijuana. You know, I'm talking about there are plants that we can consume that have the properties of antibiotics. Aloe is good for putting on burns, and it's just a good skin treatment in general. So there's a myriad of reasons that plants are good for us and that He provided them to us. You know, they're not just to stand there and make oxygen, although that's a job that they do as well. Likewise, you have people like PETA that just go absolutely foobar over animal cruelty to the point that they have gone beyond animal cruelty. As an example, I used to work at a PetSmart, and when I worked at this PetSmart, corporate started a new policy. Whenever any animals died, you know, because PetSmart sells animals, they sell fish, hamsters, gerbils, guinea pigs, reptiles, fish, and stuff like that. So anytime one of those animals dies, PetSmart corporate sent us a bunch of styrofoam boxes that you're supposed to put one in and stick it in the freezer. And you know, whenever your collection reached a certain amount or a certain time rolled around, you sent all of those dead frozen animals to corporate. And the reason that we had to do this is because some folks from PETA got to digging through the dumpsters behind PetSmarts to find dead animals to raise a stink. You know, and to go beyond that, there are people sitting in prison right now for animal cruelty. And I agree with the whole you abuse and you're cruel to animals, you should go to prison, absolutely. And then you have people like Greenpeace, you know, that will go out where the Navy might be performing missile tests or torpedo tests and stuff like that, and they'll go out and get in the way of these weapons of mass destruction and put themselves in harm's way, trying to save the whales and the dolphins and stuff like that. And apparently they don't have a conceptual understanding of exactly how large the oceans are, and they don't have an understanding that the Navy looks into these things before they start testing their weapons and whatnot. You know, they go and find places where it will have little to no impact on the animals while they're testing their weapons. And all these things are done in the name of progress and the name of protecting the environment and, you know, stuff like that. I realize that so far it seems like what I've talked about is not very important. Well, I mean it is, but comparatively it's not very important. I went through all of that to kind of make this point here. All of the people that fight for those things the way that they do, you never hear a peep out of them about abortion. In fact, there have been marches that were against abortion. But I assure you, there are more people fighting, and they are fighting more passionately to make abortion a reality. And I think abortion is absolutely reprehensible. It's an abomination. There are not sufficient words to describe how absolutely horrendous it is. Now, New York has just signed into law, or the governor has, late-term abortions up to the moment of birth. Now, I don't know how they define what the moment of birth is, and I'm not going to get into any graphical descriptions of it, but this is not a new problem, and it's 100% avoidable. It is absolutely 100% avoidable. The responsibility begins with parents teaching their children that abstinence is the only way. Because if children are taught moral responsibility, then they won't be going out getting pregnant to start with. Or they'll, at the very least, would be a lot fewer of them doing it. And those lessons carry into adulthood. You know, someone who has self-respect and a moral center is not going to go sleeping with every fella that she runs across that tickles her fancy just a little bit. Likewise, males should be taught morals as well. You know, intercourse is something that should be saved for marriage, and marriage is for life. And once someone has hit 17 or 18 years old, be they male or female, and they've heard mama and daddy and TV and radio and music talking about how, you know, this one's had so many girlfriends and this one's had so many girlfriends, and they keep scoring, they compare and stuff like that. I mean, a child doesn't have a chance in the world today. Blah, blah, blah. Sorry, tongue hung on that one. But to murder a baby at any stage is ridiculous. It's horrible. It's horrifying. And I cannot imagine the emotional impact that it has on a woman that has this done, because at the moment of conception, there are hormonal changes that happen in a woman's body. And the further these hormonal, the longer the pregnancy lasts, the stronger and more intense these hormonal changes get. And this is not a recrimination towards women, it's just a fact of biology. And if that child is ended prematurely and the body's not allowed to go through the complete cycle, it confuses the body and throws it into chaos. And a lot of women wind up killing themselves after an abortion over the hormonal imbalances and irregularities alone. But aside from that, look at something that California has done recently. Terminally ill patients, I'm not sure where this law wound up or if it has been overturned or anything, but terminally ill patients in California were allowed to commit suicide. At any age, under a certain age, I think it had to be with a parent's consent or something other like that. And I don't know if California or Oklahoma has passed a law yet allowing old people in rest homes to kill themselves. They're pushing for it. Stuff like that happens over in the UK, as far as I understand it, because they have to be approved for medical treatment. Well, if someone is denied medical treatment for a terminal disease, they've signed their death warrants, is what they have done. They have consigned the person to death, barring divine intervention, where Yahweh comes in and divinely heals them. Not too long ago, and I don't remember the baby's name, there was a baby that had some kind of terminal illness, and the parents had raised enough money to come to the United States, I think it's the U.S., and have an experimental treatment done, and the UK wouldn't let the parents do it. It wasn't going to cost the UK anything. But, and there were actually court orders that wouldn't allow them to leave the country with the child. How do you justify something like that? It's murder, plain and simple. Now, I realize that me being a male, I have never nor will I ever carry a child. I just biologically cannot be pregnant, period. And quite frankly, I don't think I would want to. But let me ask you this. How many of you dads or even moms out there have had a child that was born and then died? Or how many of you have had a pregnant spouse and the child was stillborn, or were a woman who had a stillbirth? Well, when I was younger, and this has been about 24 years ago now, I had a child stillborn, and it still bothers me. And I didn't carry the child. I participated in the conception of the child, but it was my then wife who carried the child. And yes, we are not together now and are divorced and all of that. She has since remarried, and I never have. Now that I understand what Scripture says, I won't. But that's not a topic for right now. I'm talking about the death and murder of children. And they use the word abortion to make it sound like, to make it sound less insidious than it actually is. You abort firing a missile. You abort a military action. You abort things that you choose to do. I was heading to town, but I have aborted those plans in order to do something else. To say that you abort a child makes it sound like you are changing your mind about something that you started out wanting to do, and then, I mean, it just, but the thing is all those processes are biological and automatic. You can't abort those processes. The only thing that you can do is kill those processes. It's not a type of process that you can abort. Computer technology is another place where you abort processes. I'm running a virus scan right now. I've changed my mind. I want to cancel it, and then it pops up on the screen and says, "Are you sure that you want to abort this process?" When you make a pregnant woman unpregnant prematurely, that's murder. There's nothing else that can be said about it. And the scripture in Isaiah, it's 5:20, I think, is coming to pass. People are applauding and celebrating the ability to kill children. And if I'm not mistaken, it even says that if an abortion was attempted and the child is still born alive, they can still, after the fact, end it, kill it, murder it. But, and I'll look this scripture up and put it in the description under the video, and I'll also post the address up here in the video. But if two men are fighting and they hit a pregnant woman and there's any harm done, then life for life. And that's if two men are fighting and accidentally hit a pregnant woman. And I don't know how far that scripture expands, so that's why I said I'll put it in the description underneath this and the address up here in the video, so you can go and read it yourself. Don't take my word for it. But, if two fighting men accidentally hit a woman and the child is stillborn, then one or both of those men who were fighting that hit the woman are going to die. And that's by Yahweh's decree, or God's decree, as most people in this country know him by. How much more is the punishment going to be for those who choose to willingly kill unborn children? And up to the moment of birth, I think, is what the law says. Who determines what the moment of birth is? I would have to say that the moment of birth is after the child has exited, because prior to that they were called partial birth abortions. So I'm assuming that's when the head is out, they crush the head, and then the rest of the baby just comes out, dead. So, and I apologize if that was graphic, but anyway, I have rambled on enough. This is a very difficult topic for me to discuss, because I would certainly like to have some children of my own. I don't see that happening though. Barring a divine act of Yahweh, I probably will not ever have any children. So, all that being said, remember Proverbs 18:13, Acts chapter 17 verses 10 and 11, and 2 Timothy chapter 2 verse 15. Each one of those tells you that it's your responsibility to study out scripture for yourself and seek Yahweh on your own. No one else can do it for you. I hope to see each and every one of you in the kingdom of heaven. Yahweh bless.